Hey, everybody, and welcome to the weekly blessing service for those who mourn and all that is happening during this time of the coronavirus. I am Pastor Megan Rohr from Grace Lutheran in San Francisco, and with me, as always, is
Pastor Amanda ZENTZ-ALO, who serves someone else there. I serve at Central Lutheran Church in Northeast Portland, Oregon.
Yeah, you do.
I do.
You do. And I always forget to read our opening prayer. So I'm going to read our opening gathering, and then I will talk about what is happening in today's time of gathering. So we gather here in your presence, God, in our need and bringing with us the needs of the world. We come to you, for you come to us in Jesus, and you know by experience what human life is like. We come with our faith and with our doubts. We come with our hopes and with our fears. We come as we are because you invite us to come, and you have promised to never turn us away. Whew, we did it. Today, we are going to model one of the self-care practices that I have been doing throughout this time of the coronavirus. I didn't really explain why I was doing it, but I started doing it, and a lot of people have liked it. And the idea is to just be positive in the midst of the whole world feeling like it's flooding into the ocean, to celebrate tiny victories when they happen, because when we celebrate wins, as they call it in the business community, or when we focus on gratitude, as they call it in kind of the Buddhist community and the spiritual light community, it helps our adrenaline and our endorphins kind of stay up, and to kind of reorient ourselves, maybe to recalibrate ourselves so that we're trying to stay positive, telephone.
We do this with duck quacks.
I know. Trying to recalibrate ourselves to think positively instead of kind of following the rhythm of the world or the rhythm of like the news, which is sometimes to always point out what has gone wrong and to tell you the next terrible thing. You might notice that when something stops being newsworthy because we made it to the other side of an emergency, there's no like party on CNN where they're like, woo, we put the fire out. They just find another bad thing to then put on the news. And so there's scientific research that for nonviolent movements, if you take the time to celebrate little victories that you've had along the way, rather than just thinking, we thought we made progress, but then we have so much more to do, that it feels better. It actually makes people more productive. It starts their day in a positive way and helps kind of orient them. So if you've seen any of the pep talks I've done during this time of the coronavirus with my kids, it is kind of putting that theory into practice, that like, let's celebrate any tiny little thing that is going well. And for some days, we weren't like feeling like we had survived anything that day, but we started just celebrating like we made it through the day. We made it through the week, because that's a thing that we did, and nobody can argue that we didn't make it through it because we're alive and we survived. In trauma care, part of what happens when trauma sticks to you, when you're still feeling the effects of a trauma years into the future, it's because sometimes we forget each day to look around and check if we're safe. Like, am I safe right now from the thing I was afraid of in my past? And so just noticing that we've survived some stuff is one of the ways that we kind of keep walking forward. It reminds us we're stronger than we might think some days.
More resilient.
And that we can move forward through it. I try to avoid doing this in a Pollyanna way. If you've seen the movie Pollyanna, it's maybe outdated and no one watches it anymore. But she's like, let's talk about the glad things, and kind of ignores all of the terrible things that are happening in the world. So my rule is that I don't say anything I don't believe is true. Right? So I'm not going to say the whole world is healthy. That's not true, right? So if that's not true, I can celebrate the people who are healthy. I can celebrate that I'm healthy right now. Who knows what's going to happen tomorrow, right? And so as you are kind of naming things to celebrate in a group, it's harder because not everyone might agree with you that something is worth celebrating. By yourself, you can celebrate whatever the heck you want. Like, we made it through another roll of toilet paper. Thanks be to God, right? Like,
and have one ready to add to the roll there.
absolutely. So I have compiled a list of some of the things that we have survived. Now, I know that for some people who are grieving, hearing that we survived something can sometimes make you think of all the people who didn't survive it. And yes, that is a thing that is very real. That is your truth. And naming that we survived is not in any way making fun of people who did not survive. It's not in any way saying that we shouldn't feel grief. It's taking a break for a small period of time from the grief that consumes us most of the time. So if you are someone who feels underwater most of the time, that all of life is hard, we're going to take a small amount of time to just name some of the stuff we survived. And what we're not saying is you survived and looked cool the entire time. You survived and did it the best way. I don't know anyone who's made it through this whole last 2 years doing everything the best way, just even with food the best way, or exercise the best way. Like, everybody has had hiccups along the way. So are you ready? No. So here's the other thing that I want to encourage you to do. So I have compiled a list of things we have survived that come from FEMA's website. So different actually declared disasters that we survived, because we survived so many things, we might not have even noticed all the things we survived. Like, coronavirus made it so we didn't notice a whole bunch of these things that we still survived. Okay? So if you want to add your own stuff, I will give you permission. I want petty stuff on the list. I want stuff that like you never thought in a million years that you would have survived. Stuff your kids maybe never would have had to survive. This is the equivalent in a worship service of, back in my day, I had to walk uphill both ways. It feels a little good to say that sometimes. You can add whatever you want to this list of things that we survived. The way that we get the highest amount of kind of emotional chemicals that help kind of sprinkle us with some of the things that make our body happier is to, and it's going to sound corny, but we're going to do it anyway, is to say, after each thing we read off, I survived. And if you didn't feel like you survived that thing, you can say, so far, right? But if there's a way that we can join in with each other, there is something about joining in with each other. We feel it a lot when we're venting, right? When everyone in the room's like, I hate that too. And you feel really good afterwards because you all said it together. We're going to try that same thing, but with stuff we survived, with stuff that might orient our brain to think about the ways that we are uniquely capable, rather than just imagining all the frailties that we might have. Does that make sense? All right.
I'm with you.
Add anything you want to the chat list that you publicly want to share. Add, if you feel like you're in a space where you can say out loud, I survived, you can do it along with us. It'll be kind of like a call and response. If you don't feel like you're in a place where you can do that, you can just type it a couple times or put in an emoji for some of the stuff, any way you want to. Are you ready?
Ready.
Now, Pastor Amanda, I hope you will be a good leader and help add some petty ones to the list that you can share publicly. Mm-hmm. Add some like ridiculous, silly ones. Add some personal ones, right? Because we want to celebrate with you.
Yep.
With the excitement of like when my 7-year-olds want to celebrate my birthday for a whole month. Right?
Mm-hmm. I want to take a look for a moment and say, Catherine just posted a prayer, and for those in COVID, particularly for a niece
Yes.
that has been taken off of a ventilator for
Oh,
positive
no.
reasons. For positive reasons.
Oh, positive reasons. Yay!
Positive reasons. She is surviving,
Yes.
which is amazing. And prayers for all on a similar journey. And as normally we begin this service, one of the reasons we've been doing this for so long is that we are taking time to hold and honor the grief. And so for folks who are here, like coming and being like, I thought we were doing grief stuff here. These celebrations are a part of the grief work. And shall I go ahead and share our numbers for the week?
Sure, if you'd like.
You have them?
Yeah, I do.
You got them. So if you want to share them, go ahead. But I think as we hear the story of one surviving, we remember the millions who have survived coronavirus as well. So and we also, in a both and sense, hold folks who know that hearts are heavy, and it has been another big week.
Yes.
And so we own that, we hold that, we honor that, and we will be looking for those ways that we continue to find our pathway forward. So what are our numbers, Pastor?
All right. Thank you. That so far there have been 3.7 million coronavirus deaths, with the highest increases right now in India and Brazil. 2,263 people died yesterday in India. 2,027 people died yesterday in Brazil. And for the United States, we are below 1,000 deaths a day, which has not happened for a long, long time. Throughout the world, 83.2 million people recovered from the coronavirus. They survived.
They survived.
And adding to this number, now that we have the data, 533,975,875 people throughout the world have had their first dose of a vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
223,329,095 individuals are fully vaccinated. May those numbers increase, and particularly may they increase in places where people are the most vulnerable, particularly in places where there is less privilege.
Yes.
As of today, my friends, we have survived COVID.
We have survived so far.
For over a year. Yeah. Can we talk about hurricanes and tropical storms?
These are the things that happen around us.
These are mostly United States disasters. Folk from other countries, feel free to add some of yours in the chat. In 2020 alone, we survived 30 hurricanes.
We survived.
And since in 2020 and in 2021, tropical storms and hurricanes affected North Carolina, Maryland, Louisiana, Georgia, Connecticut, Mississippi, New Jersey, Alabama, Texas, Florida, Delaware, New York, Alabama, Puerto Rico, and the Virgin Islands. They survived.
They survived.
And we survived.
Resilient communities.
And places like the American Samoa and Hawaii, I think, just call them regular storms. So they put them in a different part of the list. In 2020, fires burned more than 4 million acres across California. In October 14th of 2020, Cameron Peak in Colorado became the largest fire in state history. There were fires in Oregon, Arizona, South Dakota, Nevada, Wyoming, Utah, Montana, Arizona, and Florida that were large enough to be called disasters. But we survived.
We survive.
In 2020, there was a day the whole sky was orange and there was no sun, but we survived.
We survived.
Floods. There were 2 dams that failed in 2020 in Michigan. And there was severe flooding in Alaska, North Dakota, Michigan, Hawaii, Utah, and Puerto Rico. But we survived.
We survived.
There was record heat in a number of places throughout our land. Notably, Phoenix set a record for the most days with temperatures of 100 degrees Fahrenheit or higher, with 144 days.
Oof.
But we survived.
We survived.
There were FEMA-declared disasters due to storms, both winter storms and thunderstorms and rainstorms. In Tennessee, Louisiana, Kentucky, Texas, Washington, Oklahoma, Iowa, Alabama, Arkansas, Tennessee, Michigan, and Hawaii. But we survived.
We survived.
There was an explosion in Nashville on Christmas Day, but we survived.
We survived.
There was political unrest in Washington, D.C., but we survived.
We survived.
There was an earthquake in Utah, but we survived.
We survived.
There were epidemics of gun violence and racial injustice, but we have survived so far.
We have survived so far.
Countless individuals watched the death of Black individuals on television and have lived through trials, and we have survived so far.
So far.
Are there other emergencies we want to lift up from the comments, Pastor Nada?
Not in our comments.
Okay, great. Are there any from your life or from your region of Oregon you want to lift up?
Not emergencies.
I want to lift up that my children have been home from school for over a year, and we survived.
So far.
So far, yeah. I want to lift up the amount of fear that people have carried about their own health and the health of others, and that we have survived. I want to lift up that here in San Francisco, they believe the number of deaths from opioids and fentanyl and other drugs might eclipse the number of deaths from the AIDS crisis, even with Narcan. But we survived.
We survived so far.
So far, yeah. I want to lift up those who have lived through domestic violence, through triggers of domestic violence from the political sphere, and all of the ways that safety is not always easy in family life. May we not only survive, but may we all be safe and know it.
We have survived.
Yeah.
I want to lift up predominantly cooking from home and not relying on restaurants, and the toll that can take on households as they change patterns. We have survived.
We have survived. We have survived by the grace of God and whatever it was that could be fulfilled from our grocery lists during these times, for sure. I lift up all who have been on ventilators, who take care of people in all of the ways that breathing is monitored in health facilities. From those who work on anesthesia to the respiratory therapists, and to those who work in rehabilitation, helping people relearn to walk after they've been on ventilators.
Relearn to breathe. People are having to relearn how to breathe after a ventilator.
Yeah, all the ways that healthcare workers in general people who, and by healthcare workers, I mean not only those who are trained in medicine and in mind, body, spirit care, but also those who are cleaning toilets in health facilities, those who are
Healthcare
doing
services.
laundry at senior homes, those who are caring for elders, all who have been taxed by the stress and the need to keep working in the midst of all of this. Yeah, you have survived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I know our celebratory list was slightly sad, but that's just in part because it has been a serious thing we've been through.
Mm-hmm.
So celebrating serious things, celebrating things we're still actively grieving, looks differently than celebrating a graduation. Yeah. And particularly for those who are carrying grief and have had to celebrate a birthday anyway with a kid who deserves a birthday party, even though everyone's grieving, you might know that celebrating is not the same as feeling celebratory, nor is it the same as it might have been in times when you're not carrying grief. And so part of this, just declaring that we've survived together, is noting that it's okay if you're not fully present at things that need to be celebrated, or if there is sadness living in and amongst and betwixt celebrations, because surviving, whenever we declare that someone has survived, is always a sadness that someone had to go through that crap at all.
Yep.
And the unfairness of it, the fact that others could go through it, and the not completeness of our survival. And so I am so grateful you all made it through the day, that you made it through this week, you made it through this year.
Yep. And one of the things that I have found to be helpful through some of this and finding the way through is to say, I can do hard things. And this is a version of that, to say, we have survived. We can do hard things. We have been doing hard things. We will continue to do hard things, and make it through them. Mm-hmm. And so even just saying out loud, sometimes I can do hard things. I am resilient. I have survived. These are ways in which we find our way forward and through, even while we continue to understand that the impacts of trauma are continuing to occur. Yep. And that is just reality. In Clackamas County here in Oregon, we are on the verge of going back to the highest level of concern because our numbers are increasing again here around coronavirus. So even though we are under the death count of 1,000 people per day, likely because the vaccinations are increasing, and thanks be to God for that. Mm-hmm. There are still cases on the rise, and we still continue to see impacts. So double masking up, taking slow and steady breaths through those double masks. I got my grocery shopping done last night. Yes. I survived. You
survived. Yeah. Turning on the air conditioning in your car, even though it's not hot out. Being near a cold freezer for a couple seconds to slow breathing down. All of those things that help you survive a minute that's too much to bear are worth celebrating. Think of all of the new coping skills we've all learned. And all of the ways that we have figured out that we can care for each other.
That's right.
I would like to also add to our list of things we survived is, like, normally, because I have littles in little school where they lick everything, we normally get hundreds of colds each school year. And I just want to say that the one kind of blessing of homeschool and children wearing masks instead of licking everything is that I survived so many colds that I did not get, which is good because I didn't have the ability to wonder if each one of those colds was going to kill me. And so
my partner is celebrating all of the non-colds as well. Yeah, very much so.
Yep. Yep. And this is a silly one, but like for everybody whose allergies have started flaring up, I know it's hard to not know if it's allergies or not, but I just want to declare how silly it is that you're glad you have allergies and not something else, which is not something we can proclaim most years, right?
It's true. It's true.
Yeah. We didn't have very many petty ones. We're going to have to work on being pettier.
I know.
I guess maybe we got them all out in private. I hope everyone will have opportunities to connect with folk that you can vent with, both in healthy ways, celebrating the things you have made it through, people who can help remind you when you are safe, if that is your situation, and folk who can also vent all the other muck and crap that you don't need to carry with you into the future of your journey, but's got to get out somehow. And so I'm delighted that folk were able to kind of participate in that. And notice at in times of your life with good friends, when you get into this litany of things that you are joining each other in, either celebrating or lamenting, and just know that it is one of the healthiest things that you can do. And so and it really is prayer. Mm-hmm. We just didn't say by the grace of God or day anew in all the ancient ways that those prayers have been lifted up. I guess the one thing that we should add to our prayers is stuff beyond our reality that we want to also tell God that they should do next, right? Like, I would like peace and justice in all of the world, like real justice, the promised kind, not in some heaven so far away, but here in this place where the new light is shining. Yes, stole it from him. It's fine.
That's going to be an earworm. Thanks.
Sorry. It's an oldie. It's from the Green Hymnal, those of you who are from the Lutheran version.
I don't think it was. I think it was just ELW. I might have made it into With One Voice.
When I sang it last Sunday, it was in the Green W, but maybe it made it into one of the new ones. Yeah.
I don't know. I have no idea.
You know what else I want God to do?
What?
I want God to make all people able to walk down any street anywhere in the world without their body being talked about.
Yes. Preach. I want teenagers to feel safe and loved.
I also want them to be less grumpy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can ask for a miracle, I guess, but that seems a little far-fetched.
Safe and loved. Fine. Everyone safe and loved. All children. Can all children be safe and loved?
All children. And especially teenagers.
I want food that's bad for me not to be bad for me anymore.
I want long-term experiences of health challenges to dissipate on the wind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I want all parents who need to give their kids just a little bit of space to be able to do that in ways that are safe.
Yeah.
With trust they've earned. And then when they blow that trust, to just get them in so much trouble. Because that's what we have to do as parents.
but for it to not be terrifying for the parent.
Yeah, right? We don't want to have to worry about how they're going to screw it up.
And safety for the kid, right? Like yes. Oh, it's so hard. Parenting is so hard.
Yes. There have been lots of prayers this past week from folk in my social media to let go of the doubts in their head that keep them from doing what they're up to. That they can just love boldly and not have to second guess everything.
Yeah. I wish for there to be a magical way for people to receive the kind of care that they need so they are always comfortable in their physical representations.
I want Aaron to have a bagel.
Yes, me too.
It should be good stuff like carbs.
Carbs.
We just
all the
want
carbs.
probably.
Mashed potatoes. Giant plate of mashed potatoes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on that train.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would like to have whatever gene it is where you not only want like think about working out, but then you do it. You know what I mean?
No,
not you. Other
clearly
people.
I don't have it.
Yeah.
I want to be able to sing in harmony in person with someone again.
I want, this is very specific to having small children, but I want there to be like a button you can push on the remote control when you realize the movie you're watching with your family is not one you should watch with kids. And it like deletes all the parts that you shouldn't see, but without adding new commercials.
Fair.
Because every time my kid goes to school and tells all the kids how much they liked a movie that's
Kids
like
in room, click.
inappropriate. Yeah. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I'd like weeds to just like be able to walk away somewhere else out of a garden. I know we've gone in a strange direction, but sometimes you have to let the joy just go, especially after you do a long list of every like disaster of the last 2 years. You got to just like laugh and have some silly time too.
That's right. That's right. Well, all of these things and the many, many, many things that are upon our hearts. I want roller derby back. Yeah. Can you hear the longing in my voice? I want derby back, and I want my person to be in physical condition enough that I could get back on the track without causing a tib-fib spiral, without intention. Not that I would cause one with intention, but...
Amanda is right now praying to God that someone could knock her over while she's on roller skates and she could just not have a concussion.
Yes.
That's what she's praying for, is the not having a concussion part. But yes, to someone knocking her over more often.
Yes, to have the musculature and the strength in the personhood to be able to hit other people on the track. The gut longing. Yes. So all of these things. Yeah. This sounds perfect, doesn't it?
So this is the good news, right? The good news is that God cares about the petty stuff in our life. God cares about the big picture stuff. God cares about the silly. God shows up for it. And it's all in scripture too, right? There's a part in scripture where donkeys talk because they think people are being so ridiculous that donkey talking is not the strangest part of what just happened in that text, right? So why not? Feel free to pray big, especially in times like these. If most of the world has gone to confetti, like, you might as well pray for nonsense stuff and being knocked over and all the things that bring us joy that we don't always admit in public, because how else are we going to make it through the day, right?
Yep. Dance like David danced. Yes. Yes.
Exactly. I'm also going to add to this blessings that Jesus blessed people for. So blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people revile you and persecute you and utter all kinds of evil against you falsely on my account. Rejoice and be glad, for your reward is great in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who have gone before you. And even though all things are possible, that you have God's favor when you are reviled and persecuted, I'm still going to pray that none of that happens to you.
Yes.
I'm going to pray that your kind of music is possible to see live, that your kind of people are possible to hug, that your favorite views are free of clouds when you are near them, that the Moonshine Festival comes back, that the kind of beverages that give you delight or clear out the indigestion in your body are available, and that all the things that make it hard to sleep at night disappear, and that sleep be plentiful, that love be even more abundant, and that you are full of so many more blessings than you can carry, so that you have to share them with others.
Amen and amen.
Y'all, we love you so much. We're so glad that you made it as far as you did. No matter how much grief you are carrying, we love you, and we know that God loves you too. Live forgiven, claim your wholeness, and go in peace. We love you guys. Take care.